explored the Americas like other people. So there's a bias that you can see some of the comparisons here. There's El Negro again, and one more time. And you can see some of these are beyond just the massive. Look at this one.
Wow.
Yeah, wow. You said it. That's y'all's favorite word, huh? Wow. And by the way, you were great. Let's give these young people another round of applause. I think this one looks a bit like me without the glasses. Working out. I try to tell people I don't go to Burger King every day. And you can compare this one right here with Shaquille O'Neal. See, if I had one of Steph Curry or Draymond Green, you could get like that. Yeah, you know, you took the words out of my mouth. Leave me alone. Now you can see the shape of the head here from this woman from Congo and compare it to this head from, this is Tutankhamun in Egypt. Egypt is in Africa, you know. Did you know that? Yes. I've been to Egypt 22 times and it's been in Africa every time. And you can see the same elongated head here. These are other pieces from ancient America that go beyond the heads. I'm just trying to expand your consciousness. And even if you don't agree with what I'm saying, enjoy the photographs. These are all from pre-Columbian America. This is all hallowed ground. And then I'm going to introduce another theme in just a moment, but I thought it was very important that I show you something that you typically would not see. Now look at this one, for example. Now this is about 1,500 years old from a place called Veracruz in Mexico. It has keloids or scarification, and it appears to even be wearing a kind of pair of glasses. Ancient Ray-Ban or something like that. Here's the same one. This is a new one I found. Look at the hairstyle. From Guatemala, and these are from Mexico. These are on the base of a temple 1,400 years old. You can see here, a black-skinned warrior from Mexico, another one, yet another one. These are Mayan, and this comes from Belize. This is classic Mayan, and one more, and one more, and one more. Now, I could easily give a lecture, but there's a maxim, seeing is believing, and a picture's worth 1,000 words. Now this man is interesting. This man takes us to Africa. He's an African king. A lot of times when we do images of Africa, we don't see images of African royalty. In fact, traditionally, if I were to ask people, what do you think of when you think of Africa, I get 3 answers consistently. First is wild animals, because that's the image we see on television. You see the herds of zebra and wildebeest and cheetahs, you know, crossing the plain, hoping not to get eaten up by the cheetahs and the lions and the leopards. And the second answer I get consistently, what do you think of when you think of Africa, is poverty. You know, you see these poor, starving people, babies, and you feel sorry for them. And the third answer I get consistently is disease. You remember a couple of years ago, we were all going to die from Ebola. It was Armageddon. You know, close the door. Don't let Africans over here. Don't go to Africa. So we have an overwhelmingly negative image of Africa. And for African Americans to have a negative image of your ancestral homeland is very debilitating, whether you understand that or not. Now this is Mansa Musa. He comes from a place called Mali. And according to economists, he's the wealthiest man that ever lived. Now his predecessor is another African king of Mansa named Abubakar. And according to Malian tradition, they built a fleet of ships 800 years ago and crossed the Atlantic into the Americas, into hallowed ground. This is just an old ship. This is the first known ship in the world from Africa, from Egypt. It's 4,600 years old. It's 120 feet long. And this is a ship constructed by a man named Thor Heyerdahl with an African model. This one is from Costa Rica, ancient times, and ancient Peru, from Canada and Canada. And here I am with that piece. This is Hopi. This comes from the American Southwest. And this is an interesting piece too. You can even go to Disneyland and see this. This woman's name is Califia. And according to Spanish tradition, that's where the name of the state of California comes from, in a novel that was published in Toledo in Spain in 1516. And then you have the enslavement period, this sad, sad period in human history. Unlike anything else, it went on for so long it kind of became a way of life. And one of the worst things about enslavement or slavery is that it made many people forget that black people had a history before slavery. So we start with enslavement, and it cripples us. This is a dungeon at a place called Cape Coast in West Africa, in Ghana. And then in a place called Senegal, you actually have an infant's dungeon. Now you had, traditionally in many of these places, and I've been to about 8 of them, you have a dungeon for the men, a dark stinking hole, hot, no air conditioning, it stank, there were no toilets. And you lay there in your chains, branded. And then in the women's dungeon, and I don't think we have to use our imaginations very much to think about how those women were treated and the degrading things that happened to them. But in a place called Gorée Island in Senegal, you actually had an infant's dungeon. Imagine a dungeon for children. I'm 61 years old. I became a father for the first and only time at the tender age of 51. My daughter is 10. Now, think about that for a moment. I'm in the men's dungeon. And my wife, or my mother, or my sister, my grandmother, my auntie, my niece, perhaps my daughter, is in the women's dungeon. And I'm helpless to intervene. And then in the background, I can hear my child, "Daddy, where are you? I'm afraid. Come get me. I'm scared. I'm hungry. I'm cold." And you're unable to intervene. A lot of the things that we do in the black community today, I have no doubt, stem from the horrors of that traumatic experience that most of us don't even want to talk about, don't even want to think about. And I know a lot of the things that I'm saying might make you uncomfortable, but having a bad tooth makes you uncomfortable. And rather than suffer, you have to go to the dentist and pull it out, or have something else. So these are things, like it or not, that we need to talk about, that we need to discuss, because this is a part of our history. Not all of our history is glorious like the things I showed you from Mexico. But these are issues that I think we need to talk about too at this time, with this theme, hallowed ground, sites of African American memories. And then this is another one called Fort James. This is in a place called the Gambia. And this is where Kunta Kinte came from, the ancestor of Alex Haley, that Vice Admiral talked about in Roots. You know, I never saw Roots. Too painful for me to watch. Even now, I'm not able to watch human suffering of that type. And here's a place in Ghana where Africans were able to take a last bath after they were captured and marched to the coast. Before they went to the dungeons, they were able to take a last bath. And even here, they had shackles and chains on their hands and their feet. The local people call it Slave River. And then this is how the Africans were packed away, on these floating coffins called slave ships. And there might be 5 or 6 layers, let's say like this. And each individual might have this much space to lay in. If you were tall, you were in a lot of trouble. And you might have this much space top to bottom. And you might have 5 or 6 of these stacked on top of one another. Maybe 300 people on a voyage that might last 6 weeks or perhaps 3 months. From West Africa to the Americas, to hallowed ground. Now think about that. Think of the stench. There were no toilets. Think of the blood and the feces. Think of the rats gnawing on those people. Think of laying on the bottom of that. And your ancestors, my ancestors, survived all of that. That's a very, very, very strong people. So I wanted to show you that. And then they were brought to the Americas. Now this is a photograph in Barbados. I was there lecturing last year, and I was taken around on an island tour, and somebody brought me here at the beach and says, "Runoko, this is the ship Jolly Roger." I said, "Why would you show me this?" And he said, "Because this is where the ships with enslaved Africans used to come. And this is where they would dump the bodies of the dead and the dying in this very area. And they told me the sharks would just infest the area because they knew that they were going to have a full meal." This is a part of African American history too. All this is hallowed ground. And then this was a mask designed for a woman in Brazil named Anastasia, who refused to be violated. And so the slave owner or slave master designed a special iron mask that she was forced to wear until she submitted. And she never submitted. She wore it until it rusted. She died with this on. And so I think the model from that is we don't have the right to be silent in the face of injustice. That people paid a tremendous price for, at least for you to speak out against injustice. This here is in Brazil, another place, hallowed grounds. And this is where the emancipation of slavery was announced in Brazil in the 1880s. Slavery was not abolished in Brazil until the 1880s. And then you have, many people believe that Africans sold other Africans into slavery. Now most people who say that haven't done any study. You just heard that. And it's a convenient thing for many people to say. But one thing is for sure is that there were Africans who fought against enslavement. And one of the foremost of these freedom fighters is a lady named Nzinga from Angola. And then these images take us to colonial Americas. This, for example, is a black saint. His name is Saint Martin de Porres. And that same saint in Peru. And a neighborhood named after him in Ecuador and in Brazil. And then you have another image that comes out of the colonial period, and that are these miraculous images of Black Christ. This one is in Guatemala, and Mexico, and Panama, and Peru, and then also from the colonial period. These are governors of a province in Esmeraldas, Ecuador. This is the first signed painting in the Americas. This was done in 1599. It hangs in the Museum of the Americas in Madrid. And here's another interesting one. During the European Renaissance, it was common to portray the youngest of the three kings who in Christian tradition came to the manger in Bethlehem. It was common to portray the youngest of them as an African, specifically an Ethiopian. But this one I actually found in Mexico. Or it's from Mexico. It's in a museum in Los Angeles, the Los Angeles County Museum of Art. And you can see the African king here. And what's called a Costa painting from colonial Mexico. And last, let me just show you something I think is uplifting, because this is the future, and all of this is hallowed ground. I hope I'm keeping with the theme, with the ability to just kind of have some flexibility. And I want to show you as I finish, African people, Black people, African Americans, in places you normally don't expect to find them. These are pictures, and I think all of these are original photographs. These are pictures of African Americans in Mexico, specifically a place called Costa Chica. And for the young people, I hope you will enjoy these because they are you. Well, he's not a young person. All right, but she is. You think she's pretty? I told this, she came to one of my lectures in Mexico. And I told her she was very pretty. She's about 19 years old. I like to compliment people, especially when it's true. And she said, no, I'm not. I said, I thought she misunderstood. My Spanish is not good. I said, you're very pretty. She said, no, I'm not. I said, what do you mean? She said, I'm black, I'm ugly. Low self-esteem. Because all they've been told is that they were slaves. That's all they know. All in Mexico, this first sequence. I think they're great photographs. In Colombia, in Bolivia, and also in Bolivia, with these children in Bolivia, and these were some mischievous little children. They made fun of my Spanish. You know, I'm bow-legged and pigeon-toed, so they would walk behind me and try to walk like me. And I know this is a terrible thing to say. I'm high in the Andes. This little boy in the end, I really thought about picking him up and tossing him on the other side. But their fathers were looking right at me as if to say, I would do it too. In Peru, so you don't see these folk on TV very often. Guatemala, in Ecuador, and what I remember about this elder and she had a really, really foul mouth. She said some things that really, really, really made me blush. But it looks like we're from the same community. Peru, Brazil. After a recent lecture, they were just delighted. I showed this one before. Haiti, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere. People have really suffered there. Peru again, I'm almost done. Canada. I think this is a beautiful picture right here. I love this one. Suriname, in the rainforest of Suriname, these people are called Maroons. They really fought against enslavement. All of this is hallowed ground, sites of African-American memories. In Bermuda, some children I met on their way to school, they were reluctant to let me photograph them, but finally they said, okay, you look like you're not too harmful. In Barbados, I was just in a park and this little boy, a little Rastafarian child, just came and jumped up in my arms. Very innocent, the innocence of youth. Haiti. And these, no, this is in Guyana.